Good morning, everybody. Honestly, I thought that there were going to be about 25, 30 questions for Erica, so I was still back there fiddling with my iPad doing things. I'm joking. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited to address you all today. I'm Eric Lindberg. I'm the Executive Officer of the Santa Ana Regional Water Board. Hold your applause, please. I know how much folks love the regulators. I'm often the most popular person in the room. The fact is that usually I'm the least interesting speaker in a lineup. But I promise that I have some important things to say, some things that interest you, some things that interest your agencies, your consulting firms, your day-to-day living here in the watershed. So please bear with me. As unpopular as I may be, I promise it's worth it. The thing that sticks out to me when I read this is the end. Benefit of present and future generations. So, what's my mission? Water quality is my mission. My staff are incredibly good-hearted. They believe in what we do. They believe in the good of the environment and the work that we can do as communities to bring about good water quality outcomes. I have to tell them sometimes that we're not water cops. We aren't. That's not the job of the regulator. We are partners with you all. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We have a role to play in the watershed to bring about good outcomes, and we can't do it without you guys. I'll tell you, when I do speak to crowds like this, I often say we. We built this. We did indirect potable reuse, And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Elsinore Valley Water District. I'm talking about Eastern Municipal Water District. I'm talking about our other partners in the watershed. It's not us. It's the larger we. And what I'm hoping, and I'm lightly teasing myself with the unpopularity thing, what I'm hoping is that you'll see us, me and my staff, as partners in what we do. So let me keep saying we when I talk about all the good works we're doing. Anyway, benefit of present and future generations. It's the key takeaway, and the reason that stands out is because we're talking about people. We're talking about beneficial uses that benefit people, right? My board, I have an incredible board. My board chair is here today. And I'm sweating bullets because I have a great board. But I'll tell you what, my board, they're not necessarily water experts. They're not necessarily engineering experts. They are some of those things to some extent. But they are community leaders. That's what they are. That's what the Water Code says. The Regional Water Board should be made up of a representative group from the community, leaders for the community to lead to good things coming out of that community. I take that very seriously. Okay, this is us. Just to orient you, do I have a pointer? No. We're somewhere kind of in the lower central portion. You can see San Jacinto River running from the southeast to the dead south, and the rest of the main stem of the Santa Ana River is up north. And you'll notice they're disconnected, so I want to talk about that a little bit. But here's some fun facts. We're big, we have a lot of residents. We and I'm proud of this one, we have extensive groundwater basins. That is such a jewel. Other regions in the state really struggle with cleanup. They struggle with treating drinking water using reverse osmosis. They struggle with dealing with salt and nutrient excessive loads because they can't put them anywhere. We can. We have a brine line. And again, this is we. I didn't build it. You guys did. SAPA did. The agencies did. And it's an absolute treasure. And the last bullet's a little cheeky. 125 million gallons per day recycled water recharge system. I'm talking about the river. I'm talking about the water that goes from the upper watershed to the lower watershed. ultimately recharging in Orange County. I tell you, unless we get, a Hurricane Hillary or something like that, there isn't a whole lot of water that hits the ocean. It's used and it's reused. It's when we talk about beneficial uses, that's a very real term. Here's what we do. I think you guys know this stuff, but I do want to talk a little bit about a couple of them. The watershed is much larger than just the San Jacinto portion of the watershed. But I know my audience. I'm here to talk to you about how it affects this watershed and the good work that we've done and that, led by LESJWA, the agencies of the various task forces and things have done. So here's what we do. Stormwater is a hot one because we're right in the middle of, actually we are days away from releasing the revised regional permit, the MS4 permit, which is the municipal separate stormwater system permit. This is the one permit to unite them all in my dark Mordor kingdom. It's supposed to be a joke because it's a very unpopular permit. Okay. The fact is that my staff have worked really hard on the stormwater permit to take in stakeholder feedback, to listen to all of the voices in the room, to frankly get into the room with those voices so that we can hear them. And I think that there'll be a lot of excitement when we do release that permit here, like I said, probably in a matter of days. I invite you all to book the July board meeting. It's going to be a real firecracker. Irrigated lands. I mentioned that because we actually have some. We actually have some in our watershed. Our watershed is highly, highly urbanized. It's developed, it's built out. There's a lot of concrete. There's not a lot of agriculture, but we do have some, and it's important. And one of the beneficial uses of water is agriculture. It may not be one of the ones that's the most popular in the Sierra Club's newsletter, perhaps, but it's a fact. That is a beneficial use that we protect. And we take the fact that there's agriculture in the San Jacinto watershed very seriously. We regulate it carefully. We work with the growers as much as possible to lead to good outcomes, and ultimately to protect what I'll show you in a second is the outcome of all of the drainage in the San Jacinto watershed ending up in Canyon Lake. I think we've got some pictures of it actually. Or where are we at? Also TMDLs, which we'll talk about in a minute, and site cleanups. So these are the challenges. So I was asked to present a state of the state or a state of the watershed. I rarely stay on topic. I like to talk about whatever it is that's important to me, and then try to impress that it's important to you. We'll see how I do. But let's talk about some of the challenges in the watershed, state of the watershed. When I first had this slide, it said salt and nutrient management in Chino Basin, which is embarrassing to me because the Chino Basin is it's a favorite of mine. It's a pet project. The fact of the matter is that our salt and nutrient management approach is way bigger than any one basin. Chino's a success story, but we have some other massive success stories when it comes to salt management. Eastern Municipal Water District, are you guys here? You must be. Eastern Municipal Water District has a massive recycled water system. They treat and they move water throughout their system. It's a beautiful thing. Elsinore Valley, I mentioned you a minute ago, and I'm sure that we're probably talking about it. They have an IPR project that's happening, protecting groundwater quality, producing water that goes in the lake, and producing water that gets served. Salt management is job number one for me. Salt ruined the Mesopotamian culture, right? If your agriculture doesn't get flushed out, your roots die, crops fail, so on and so forth. And it's way bigger than that now in the modern world. Salt ruins so much. We have that brine line that I talked about. We can move salt out of the watershed, and it's so critical that we continue to do so. Anyway, this is top of my mind. I think about this every night before bed. Newport Bay impairments. It's not just Newport Bay, but it is absolutely a priority. And that's not this watershed, but recognize that when we're faced with challenges that affect recreation, particularly when people are in the water, as well as the other beneficial uses, that we take that very seriously. Things like bacteria not only affect Newport, but they also affect the Middle Santa Ana River. It affects pretty much every water body that we have to one extent or another. So really that bullet should have been bacteria impairments. Control groundwater plumes, sure. Pathogens limiting recreation, that's what I just said. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so little hydrogeology lesson. What this map shows, this is pulled from an older report. Looks like it was delivered in 2020. This is the 2018 ambient water quality recomputation, focusing in on, well, not focusing, this is the entire watershed. This shows salt concentrations throughout the watershed. So if you remember the first map where there was the little disconnected bit down in the south, that's here. So notice that as color ramps from green, which is low salt concentrations in groundwater, to red, which is high salt concentrations in groundwater, notice a couple things jump out. The area in the San Jacinto Basin, right by Paris South, you may not be able to read it in the back of the room, is a big red blotch, right? So what's going on? What's happening there? The San Jacinto watershed is a closed system. It doesn't flow to the ocean except under the most extreme circumstances, and essentially not at all in recent history. The salt that accumulates through natural and anthropogenic means, it all kind of flows from east and from north down to that southwestern corner. You can see it. You can see the red blotch. That's basically the bottom of the bathtub. That's right by the drain. The drain in this case, no offense, is Canyon Lake. And then right next to Canyon Lake is Lake Elsinore. Not to be pejorative when I say drain, but the fact of the matter is that everything that comes from the watershed above ends up in the lake below. The lake doesn't overflow. It can, under really specific circumstances, but it doesn't flow to the Santa Ana River anymore. We call it the Santa Ana watershed, right? Because it's one watershed, but it's disconnected. It's been that way for a long time, and we have to deal with it differently because there isn't that output in the salt balance. Okay, anyway, so you'll notice that there's green areas downstream, the Elsinore management zone, which is, I think, a little out of date now. It's good quality water, low salt. Going up the creek and towards the river, it's not too bad. So basically, the Canyon Lake and Elsinore system, if we can think about it as a combined system, because Canyon Lake does flow into Elsinore every now and then, is kind of the goalie on the ice rink. That's the end. That's where it's really critical that we manage salt and nutrients important. Any Ducks fans here? Okay. Anyway, accomplishments. Yeah, we've done some good stuff. We continue to struggle with harmful algal blooms in our lakes. Elsinore, to talk about hydrogeology, Elsinore was formed by tectonic activity, basically faulting, the Elsinore Fault, downdrop blocks, collection of water, so on and so forth. But it's not the only lake that operates this way. Big Bear, to some extent, it doesn't really flow out, right? I mean, because of what we've built around it. Whenever that happens, whenever there's no output, salt and nutrients will accumulate. And it takes some very deliberate action to try to mitigate that and prevent things like harmful algal blooms, fish kills, so on and so forth. One of our biggest accomplishments, and I know this is probably what you've been waiting for, is that we very recently, less than a year ago, adopted the Lake Elsinore Canyon Lake Total Maximum Daily Load Basin Plan Amendment to revise the TMDL for those water bodies. I hope that more than anything else, this demonstrates our commitment to positive water quality outcomes in the water bodies that are important to our communities. I'm looking at the beautiful pictures from Canyon Lake and Lake Elsinore. people are fishing and swimming and boating and doing whatever it is with those jets that they they fly around. It's really critical that we protect our water quality resources. And I know it's at the forefront of the city of Lake Elsinore's mind. I know it's at the forefront of our water districts here. It's job one when it comes to my staff and I. We're pretty proud of the TMDL. It was an incredibly lengthy process to bring it about, but we do things a little differently in this region. And I think it's important that everybody recognize we don't go into the cloakroom and build a TMDL. We come out and meet with the community. We come out and meet with the agencies. We invite all of the stakeholders. We have public meetings to address the challenges in the open, full transparency, and to come up with the best technical solution possible. It's a way better product than anything that my staff could come up with if we just did it at our office and dictated it to everyone. I absolutely believe that from the bottom of my heart, and I think it leads to some pretty good outcomes. I already talked about the MS4. It's coming, and at the risk of having rotten fruit thrown at me up here, I won't belabor the point. But you can't separate the issue. Urban contributions, and suburban for that matter, and rural for that matter, contributions to the water quality in Canyon Lake and Lake Elsinore can't be separated from stormwater inputs. It's a key part of what ends up in the lake. And that's a good thing. I mean, water in the lake's a good thing, right? The question is, what kind of quality is that water? So, more to come on that. I think it's the 5th click that makes it go. Yeah, we go. Irrigated lands, I'm probably slaughtering the amount of time that I have. So let me just say that this remains an important part. It's a smaller part of the land use portfolio in the watershed, but it does remain an important part. For example, something you might not be aware of, a lot of the ag operators in the San Jacinto area use recycled water. They use recycled water, and they account for the constituents in that water as part of their irrigation and fertilization plan. It's good work. You might want to boo the regulator, but I promise that working with us leads to good things. Okay, so priorities going forward. This comes up a lot, actually. I get asked, what are the priorities? And of course, the answer is everything. It's all a priority. But I do want to point to a couple of things. Just because we got the TMDL over the line, and now everybody knows what their load allocation is and how much they can discharge, what they need to do if they need to do offsets, and so on and so forth for the health of the lakes. The fact of the matter is that we still have sources of phosphorus and nitrogen that have to be dealt with, either mitigated or perhaps offset, or fill in the project. I know that there are some challenges with alum right now. I won't be the one to talk about that, but we're taking a look at that. We need to come up with solutions as we go into the future. Everybody's talking about AI, right? We're at a moment where things are about to change. Life is a series of moments, and the way that my staff look at these things is that the moment is now. The solution doesn't necessarily have to be the thing we've always done. It can be something else. But I'll tell you what, we can't come up with an answer if you don't help us come up with an answer. If you don't help propose an answer. If you can't help us get to that point, then maybe the old solution happens. I think it's a better outcome when we do sit around the table, like at the task force, and we share ideas and we argue and we drink Sapa's coffee, and we come to good places in the end. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to belabor that point probably one more time. Let's see, HAB monitoring. Again, the HAB thing, nothing grabs a news cycle quite like dog gets sick, vet says it was a HAB, right? And there's absolutely times when that is exactly what happened. There's also times when there was something else going on. If you recall the dogs that got sick out by, not Huntington Beach, by Venice, that was initially blamed on HABs, and that wasn't the case. It wasn't HABs at all. It was something else. But it's a narrative that has caught traction, and for a reason. And as such, we take it very seriously when there is a HAB, and our staff are out there sampling alongside yours. When there is a HAB, we have to assume that it could be hazardous to the point of making a dog sick. Heaven forbid making a child sick, right? We will continue to focus on HAB monitoring and solutions that bring about nutrient situations where HABs don't happen. I think golden algae is the one that we need to talk about right now. Let's see, adaptive management, yeah. Regional collaboration. We're pretty proud of our collaborative model, and I really have the stakeholders to thank for that. You know, we facilitate it. I come out here and blow a lot of hot air about it, but the fact is that if we can't get people to the table, we're dead in the water, pun intended. And of course, you know, MS4 remains a priority. So this is, you know, these are the priorities that my staff wanted me to talk about. This is what I wanted to talk about. These are my priorities. My priorities are to get out here and talk to you. My priorities are to sell you on the collaborative model. My priority is to talk you into pitching me and my staff ideas for projects like indirect potable reuse, for example, which we love, recycled water reuse. The governor's water supply strategy says put water in the ground, recycle more water, find ways to use it again. The more that we do that, the better. So I implore you to give me some ideas, and we will help you get there. We will build something together. For those of you who've read it, the book Abundance by Ezra Klein is very insightful about, it's a peek into the thought process in Sacramento right now. We're right in the middle of, well, we're right at the tail end of Governor Newsom's administration. We're wrapping things up. We're running through the tape, so to speak, at the end of that. We're going to have a new administration soon, and we'll see what that looks like. But the fact of the matter is that the legislature, the candidates, the outgoing governor, they all agree that this idea of building things is key. Building homes, building wastewater improvements, build things is what we're being told. We're being told, you know, cut the green tape, right? That's us. I'm green tape. I'm the green tape. Doesn't sound like anybody likes us. Well, you know, I've instructed my staff, and the board has instructed me to make sure that we're pushing projects forward when there is a good, pragmatic water quality solution there. And so that's what I'm asking you for. Bring me projects. Let's build something together. That's my dog also. I actually found him at work. He was abandoned in an illegal cannabis greenhouse. So I took him home. That's all I got. But I'm happy to take questions if there's time.